Hello, welcome to the Freedom from Anger podcast. I'm joined today with John Peterelli. He is a professional fitness coach for over 30 years and has worked alongside some of the biggest names in the entertainment industry. In 2021, John's life took an unexpected turn and he became paralyzed with GBS, is Julian Barr syndrome. It's autoimmune disease. He is also the author of the book Confessions of a Hollywood Trainer. And it's available on Amazon. It's the number one new release, top 10 bestseller. Be sure to check that out. John's here. He's going to tell us about his struggles, about his ups and downs, and just about his own personal life. Thanks for joining us, John.
Oh, thank you, James. Appreciate it, my man. I feel honored to be here. Number one, I thank you for serving this country. I have a soft place in my heart for all our veterans. My father was a veteran of three wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And we talked a little bit before we started recording here. And I want to just let you know on air, I really think what you're doing is amazing. And we discussed if we help one person with this, I feel like, man, we've done our job. If there's one person out there that's in a dark place, that's trying to find a solution and can relate to what we're talking about here, I can sleep better at night and my heart has done its job, brother. So thank you for having me. And I feel honored to be on this platform because without someone like you taking the time to do this, dedicating time to do this, my story doesn't go anywhere, right? So the more people we can help together, the more teamwork we can have, man, it's amazing. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. So, just kind of getting into it. So, we can start at 2021. We can go before that. What was your life like?
Sure. I think that's a great place, a great question. So I think in order to get to 2021, because so many things in my life that happened prior to that, that helped me navigate the waters of 2021, things that I thought maybe as a youth were tragic, things that I thought as a young man were the worst thing that could ever happen to me, actually facilitated my success in 2021 when I was paralyzed and I can only move my eyeballs. There was enough fabric from all the quote unquote failures I had in my life that helped me walk out of the ICU after 10 days of being paralyzed. So I think it's important to go through the journey. And I'll go all the way back, my man, to when I was a kid. As I stated, my dad was a veteran of three wars. He was in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. My dad was born in 1921 during the Depression, and he got married late in life. My parents are from Italy. I'm a first generation American. My mom is a 4'11" fireball of energy, dude. If you come to my house, you are going to eat more than you ever want to eat. And she just breathes life and loves cooking and creativity. And everything that I say here, I don't want anybody to get mixed up. I take full responsibility for all my actions and I don't hold anybody else accountable for what they had done. We all have our own journey. We only have the tools that we have, right? At what we're given. So we're all supposed to be trying to do the best we can from our experiences and the tools that we have been given in life. So my father was an amazing provider. He did a ton of things, but my dad being in three wars probably had, not probably, I know it was never diagnosed because at that time we didn't talk about it, but he definitely had PTSD. He would wake up in the middle of the night with night terrors screaming. He had malaria from being in combat over in, I believe he got that over in Vietnam. And as a child, it was hard for me to rationalize these things. I didn't have the mental capacity to break all these things down and understand it. My dad dealt in a lot of anger also. My father didn't have a father. His father had a separate family that they were unaware of. And when he found out as a teenager, his recourse was to go into the military. And so he was raised by the military. And when he came out, seeing combat and everything, he kind of raised me as a soldier as opposed to raising me as a son. And especially maybe for guys, women seem to be so much more in tune with their emotions and open to that. And maybe guys, wrongfully so, we may not connect with emotions like love, caring, compassion, or maybe see it as weakness when we allow that side of ourselves to be exposed. And I have to say that my dad definitely fell in that category. I never heard my dad say, I love you or ever called me son until I was 21 years old. And I distinctly remember the first time I ever heard those words. Now, once again, he had his own story. And looking back at it as an adult, I understand that and I have compassion for him. And I harbor no resentment because he did the best he could. But it kind of crafted my childhood, always looking for my dad's attention, never being able to be good enough, never ever receiving any compassion. And my mom, thank God, balanced that out and had a lot of caring and everything, man. She saved my life. By the way, James, it's the longest I've talked without taking a breath, brother. I'm glad you started that. But to get into it, I wasn't a great student in school. I had dyslexia. I had no idea what dyslexia was. Didn't learn like other people learned. And my grades showed it. That the combination of trying to get my dad's approval, being fearful of my father. Like I had absolute fear of my father. I had fear to say anything because to be deemed as non-intelligent, I had fear of my actions. So I had all this stuff bottled up inside of me. And that fear ended up manifesting itself into anger. And anger in my teenage years ended up manifesting itself into violence. And so I started getting into altercations. I started getting into confrontations, not knowing how to verbalize what was inside of me, having too much machismo, too much ego, not being able to talk to anybody about this. Man, I wish I would have had somebody like you where I could have spoken to or at least peel back some of the layers of what was going on. And so I got in all these fights. I got in all these altercations and my life changed, brother, at 18 years old when, man, I got into an altercation. We had just graduated high school. And in a moment's notice, in a split second, I ended up striking an individual. And that individual got knocked out, passed out to the ground, and hit the back of his head on the curb. And he split his head open. And I saw my life change in that instance where the next thing you know, I could be facing murder. I could be facing manslaughter. And there was a huge altercation. I'll give you some details about it. Someone's going to punch one of my friends. I push my friend out the way and I kick this person in the face. In that moment, man, he hits the ground, goes down. And I was prideful for about a second of look how proud I am of what I'd done. And then it sat inside my stomach like, oh my God, what have I done? And there was a big melee and somebody grabbed me from behind. And I thought it was somebody trying to attack me. And I turned around and retaliated. And it was an undercover police officer that had seen everything. So now at 18 years old, having all this pent up anger in my life, all this emotion, and no positive channel to put it in, I may be facing jail time for possibly killing somebody. And police officers don't take kindly to somebody striking me. And so I get locked up, I get handcuffed, I get slammed to the ground. They put me in the back of a car. And then I'm sitting there, and selfishly at that point, I'm sitting there and thinking about what's going to happen to me. Like, what's my life going to be? And here's someone that I might have killed laying down on the ground. I didn't even have the perspective at that point in my life to go outside of myself and worry about other people. And I watched police officers on the scene try to revive him unsuccessfully. I watched the fire department come and try to revive this person unsuccessfully, and finally the ambulance. And they take me from that back of that police car and they put me in what's called a paddy wagon, basically a van, and they put me in that. And I ask for forgiveness all the time for what I've done. And it still affects me to this day, 51 years old now, and I can't take it back because it's happened. So I have to own it. And I just hope that what I've learned, the things I've gone through, maybe resonates with somebody and they can avoid these situations. So I work my way through the court system. Here I am, supposed to be one of the best nights of my life. And all my friends have better options than I do, going off their colleges and stuff. And I had scheduled to go to a 2-year college, a community college. It was really, at that point in my life, the only place that would take me because I had teachers pass me in high school that they just didn't want to see me again. I'm pretty sure they got rid of me because they were tired of seeing me and my grades were horrible. But in that moment, thank God that person ended up living. Thank God they pulled through. Thank God I was able to work myself through the core system. And I also hit for me. Unfortunately, it wasn't my rock bottom because other things happened after that, but it was a culmination of a bunch of stuff. And it was the start of the change of my life. or I wanted to do something positive. I had always in my mind that, and this is crazy thoughts to have as a young man, but I had in my mind with this anger I had that I was either going to die of violence or end up in jail. And when I was sitting in the back of that cop car with my hands throbbing from the handcuffs and my ears ringing from them slamming me to the ground, that man, all the things I'd always been thinking about are coming true. They're manifesting. It's coming to reality before my eyes. I had envisioned that I would be here, and here I am. So I had made a decision that I was going to change what was important to me, that I wanted to contribute in some capacity. I didn't know what that was yet. And I needed to change my geography and I needed to change my peer group. Now, all that didn't happen overnight, and I don't blame my peer group. There was many people that had similar situations or have similar situations to what I had and didn't act out the way I did. But the dynamics of my friendships and the weakness of my mentality allotted itself to the things and actions that happened. So, man, I ended up changing my environment. I did 2 years of college. I got the best grades I ever got. Believe it or not, my major in college ended up being criminal justice. And here I am as a criminal, and now I'm taking criminal justice. So how ironic. And I was always a small kid, and I grew as a freak of nature. My mother's 5 foot, my dad was like 5'8". And as a freshman in high school, I was 4'11". And I grew to be 6 foot in like a year, my sophomore year. And so I had gotten into weight training because I was so skinny. I was so short at one point. I was trying to catch up to other people in athletics. And so I found a love and a passion in being fit, getting healthy. First, it started for me. And then I was able to cultivate that and go, man, how can I help people? How can I get outside of my needs, help people and be healthier, live without pain, have mobility, whatever that may be. And so after my 2 years of college, and I'm skipping through a ton of stuff and nonsense I did, and you have any questions, you're welcome to ask me anything. But I had $500 to my name. And after I graduated college, unfortunately, there was one more incident that put me over the edge. In Italian, we have this term called testadora. It means hard head. I have been accused of that, and rightfully so. But I had another incident, and somebody said, person that we had an altercation with said, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to find you and I'm going to kill you. And they were known for carrying a gun. And so I isolated myself. I didn't leave my house, and I made a decision that I was going to change my geography. And $500 to my name. I bought a ticket. I called a friend who was in California that I went to grade school with. He was going to college out there, and he had an uncle, and they didn't have any room in the house. But he said, "You come out, you can sleep on my floor. Get you out here." And so, pivotal moment in my life where somebody reached out and helped me, and the rest of my life has been trying to pay that back. And apparently, I've become a big crybaby, James. I'm sorry, man.
Oh, no, there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, you're right. When you're talking about when you were young, we don't think that our emotions can change our lives. But if you're carrying around all that anger and all that frustration and you lash out at somebody, they could fall, hit their head. They could end up dying. Then your entire trajectory of your life is gone. It's over. The blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And we tend to think that, especially like you said, the machismo, the macho, the man stuff all of our emotions in, and the only ones that are allowed is anger. You're allowed to express anger. You can't express sadness or anything like that, but anger is socially acceptable. And if you go out there and you lash out, then hey, you're just being a guy. But what we really try to work on with our clients is this the whole iceberg analogy. The top of the iceberg is what everybody sees. That's your anger and that's you lashing out. But what's under the surface, that iceberg is huge. There's a lot going on under the surface. And that's where we really try to try to figure out, okay, well, where's all this anger coming from? It's not just straight up anger. That's the end result. You're lashing out, you're yelling, you're screaming, you're arguing, but there's something deeper. And especially at age 18, we don't think about things like that. We're not taught how to control or manage our emotions. And unfortunately, in the male ecosystem, the tougher you are, the more attention you get, good or bad. And that's where we try to find our comfort zone. And a lot of us, we end up getting in trouble.
Man, you hit on a great point there because I talk about this. We'll get into the book later on, but I talk about this in the book, and I didn't have these realizations till I had done a lot of work on myself. But I received an identity. My identity started becoming I'm a tough guy, right? And I got love from that. And I wasn't getting attention in other places. So now it starts manifesting itself like you're a known tough guy, you're known for fighting. And so what happens? You get in more and more fights because you feel this. And I started feeding upon that, loving this identity, getting attention for doing horrible things. And then after I would do that, there would be this like, I've never really done drugs in my life, but I envision drugs kind of being like this, like you have this high and I would have a high, right? And then I would have shame after that because I knew that I should be doing something better. I knew that there could be more from my life. I had this thing in the core of me that was burning to help people, and it was being extinguished by this anger and violence. And now I have an identity for this that I have to uphold. And that's why for me, being as weak as I was at that point, I had to change my geography because I had to leave that identity and start a new identity where people didn't know me, right? I didn't have to live up to this standard. And man, you know who helped me? I said I'd call my friend and his uncle, allow me to sleep on his floor. I owe this guy, he's passed away, a great debt of gratitude. His name was James Tring, and he had his own addiction problems, and he was working his way through AA, but he had such a loving heart, and he saw some good in me, and he reached out, and he helped nurture me in ways I didn't even know at the time. Not through even telling me, but through his actions. We would have people come through AA, working their way through AA, sleeping on the floor too, and some unique characters, man. We had another guy that went through jail for manslaughter and came out after serving, I think, 10 years, and he ended up sleeping on our floor. But James had seen the good in him and wanted to give him the second half of his life. So, man, all this happened to me before I was 21. I mean, I moved to California at 21 and I isolated myself. I had a vision, took a certification to be a fitness trainer at 21. We're going back, brother, at like 1993, 94. There was like one certification for training. I went and took a test. And here I am. Before this, I had a job getting $7.25 an hour catching shoplifters, putting my life at risk. I had knives pulled on me. I had a gun pulled on me. So my life was all surrounded by violent stuff. I manifested stuff that was happening at work. And here I was able to take a test and I thought I was doing it to help people. And what I found out as I went on this journey is they in turn were helping me more than I was ever helping them. They were allowing me to be part of their journey, whether they wanted to lose 30 pounds for their daughter's wedding or be able to walk with comfort or just have mobility, or they were recovering from an injury and they trusted me to allow me in their lives to get intimate in a sense like, man, what are you doing today? What did you do? How are you sleeping? How's your family life? And as I dove into that, I started healing and I started maturing and I started going from a boy to an adolescent to eventually manhood. And I ended up blossoming a career that spanned over 30, 31 years now. And I went from a small farm town where I grew up. I was working in horse barns at one point when I lived in a small town and shoveling horse manure, baling hay, my teenage years to moving to California to being one of the most successful trainers where I went on tour with celebrities, traveled internationally. It's insane. And the thing I want to get across to people is look at if I can do this with dyslexia, with being arrested, with the shame in my life, with violence, with not being able to communicate. Imagine what you as an individual are capable of. If I can do this, what can you do? Right? We'll get into it. But if I jump forward and talk about, man, I don't want to jump too far forward. If you have questions, I know I'm running off with the mouth, brother. I just happen to get sucked into this. So if you have any questions, please interject at any point and I'll answer anything you have, or I don't want to cut you off.
Oh, no, no, you're fine. So you got into training, which, like you said, you're helping people, but you're also helping yourself. That kind of gets into the whole tenets of Alcoholics Anonymous, giving back. And that's what I try to get across to a lot of people that we work with is that I was like you, went to college, my degree's in criminal justice, and I ended up actually trying to help the people that are incarcerated. So
Yeah,
I went from thinking that, hey, I'm going to catch the bad guys to, hey, I'm going to try to help out the bad guys. But the thing
that's true.
is, I've been doing it for better part of a decade, and I've yet to run into a bad person. There's just a lot of people that are going through a lot of people that just bad decisions. And it starts from their environment and kind of goes off from there. I've met some pretty decent, likable folk behind bars that just got caught up and didn't have the tools at their disposal to back down from making some choices that changes their lives. I can definitely think of one guy. This guy was in the entertainment industry. I guarantee you he was making quite a bit of money and just kind of went off the deep end for a little while. And now he's serving several years in prison. And you would think, hey, this is a highly educated person. They got their stuff together. They're successful. But if you don't know how to manage those emotions, it only takes a second. Like we said earlier, just change the trajectory of your life.
Happened to me. I'm looking proof of that. I got lucky. I just basically got lucky.
Yeah, we definitely we all need a little luck in our lives from time to time. It's kinda wake us
Yeah, we
up.
do. You know, 2 days ago, I received a handwritten 12 pages from a medium security penitentiary in Virginia of somebody that was passed on my book. Somebody gave them my book and they read it and they were moved by my book and my story. And they're like, I can relate to so much of what you just said. They were saying, I applaud you for getting out of it. And they just basically didn't get lucky, right? I could have been in a penitentiary. I could have been there. And so they ended the letter and there was some amazing things. And I can't wait to write this person back. And the bravery they had of explaining their crimes to me and taking accountability for it. And at the end of the letter, they said, listen, I understand if after you hearing what I've done, that you don't want to communicate with. But as I'm sitting here in prison, I just wanted to let you know that what you wrote down on paper and put in a book affected me in a positive manner. And they have 7 more years to serve. And they said, when I get out, I'm going to change my life. And of course, I'm going to write this person back. Of course, because who am I to judge them? Who am I to say I could have been in their shoes? And I don't want people to think that you have to hit rock bottom in order to make these decisions and changes in your life. Because I'm a firm believer today, just because, I'm more mature, I have experience, I have life experience, I'm able to make decisions much quicker, much easier and facilitate. I still make mistakes. I still have failures and that's okay. But you don't have to hit rock bottom. You just have to make a decision that you want to change your life. You don't need someone to pull a gun on you. You don't need to almost kill somebody. In this moment right now, you can go, man, I want to change my life. I want to write my book. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a nurse. Whatever it is. If you work your butt off at it and you systematically do steps every day, it's one thing to talk about it. Then you have to put in the work. You got to put it on paper and have a plan. And I'm huge with that now in this part of my life. But if you work on it every day and you have a systematic plan, and we can go over some stuff that I do all the time that is part of my plan, and maybe people can steal some of the tools I have, but you can literally achieve anything. I know I say that all the time, but I firmly believe that. I firmly believe we can do anything. And when you live in your passion, when you live in your vocation that fills your soul and your heart, 10-hour, 12-hour, 14-hour days into becoming easier because at the end of the day, you come home fulfilled. So yeah, I went off on a little bit of a tangent, a tirade, but that you had spark that you were dealing with people in prison. And I just had somebody's first letter I've gotten from prison. But if I don't have the epiphany to write a book, who knows where that person in prison is going to, maybe they pass the book on to someone else, their cellmate or someone else, and that affects them. You and I talking right now, just this, wherever it lives in infinity, wherever people connect with it, maybe 5 years from now, maybe the first time they view it, we can connect with someone that can go, man, I need to call James. I need to call Mr. Clemens and get some help. I need to work on my anger. I relate to something John said. I want to tell someone that I love them who I've been fearful of saying because of my machismo. I want to be able to express that. So understand as individuals, man, you have so much power in every little action you take, even if you don't realize it at the moment. James Treen, when he said, come and sleep on my floor, probably didn't realize what was going to happen to me. And he didn't live to see it. But it's simple. Yes, come out here. I hear the pain in your voice and come and live with me. That's all it was. A 30-second phone call changed the trajectory of my life. We would not be talking. All the people I've trained, thousands and thousands of people I've trained would not have had the experience with me. So that simple 30 seconds you can give to someone, or that yes, or that handout, goes so far beyond what you can see with your eyes. And for me, there is something higher. We can all believe, want to believe, and that's fine. I believe that God has been guiding my life because, man, I looked at it and I'm like, did all this stuff happen? I didn't do this, right? Somebody has had a bigger plan for me because I can't even explain stuff that has happened to me. It's just beyond belief. It's beyond what my belief was at the time.
Yeah, we often forget about those little acts of kindness, and they might not seem huge to us, but you never know how it's gonna impact somebody else. The fact that he said, "Hey, yeah, I don't have room for you, but you can crash on the floor," totally changed your life. He could easily said, "No, but hey, if you're okay with sleeping on the floor, come on down." And it didn't cost him anything to say that. He just, like you said, he could tell that you were needing to change locations, and he had a floor, and why not? It'd have been a whole lot easier to say no.
Right. Right.
Yep. Yeah. But yeah, we definitely take for granted just reaching out and helping people. The smallest things can be life changers for other people.
Yeah.
Mhm. So you're a trainer, you're in California, you're killing it, everything's going great. Then 2021 rolls around and things change drastically.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah.
Just when you think you got, we never really have control of everything, right? I just try to control the things I can and not worry about the things I can't. Like I can control me getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, which I do and working out every day. I can control the fact that I'm grateful and give gratitude every day and I pray and I do breath work and all that. So I do things all the time that prep me for when challenges come about. One thing I've learned about physical training and being a personal trainer, a fitness coach is that I, without doubt, believe the mind is the strongest thing we do. The mind will direct the machine, the body to do different things or not things. And so I'm such a believer of what's between our ears is the most powerful thing out there. It can create beauty. It can create violence. In a second, I can sell someone I love them. In a second, I can create an action that almost kills someone and changes the trajectory of my life and theirs. So I really take the time to put myself in a positive place every day with routines that I do. And in 2021, culmination of everything that's happened in my life, many ups and downs. I got COVID. My family got COVID. First, my kids did, and it was a blip on the radar screen. And then my wife did, and it was a little bit worse, but not bad. And then I got it. I also teach jujitsu, and I was teaching a bunch of kids, so I was exposed to a lot of people. It was kind of crazy times at that point in 2021, and I had to quarantine because of being tested positive for COVID. So my wife, who I love dearly, is balance for me. Her name's Cheyenne. She's the yin to my yang. So for me, when I had to quarantine, buddy, here I am. I'm in my garage with an assault bike for an hour. I'm working out. I'm going crazy. I'm creating projects I got to do. I'm fixing stuff that's not even broken. I can't sit down like a normal person and watch a movie and relax. My wife is trying to balance me out. But COVID ended up being a little bit worse than it, probably a lot worse than it should have been because I didn't get any rest. So the universe for me was knocking on my door to slow down and I wasn't listening. And I don't know if it came from COVID. I don't know if it came from I had a bacterial infection where somebody had a toenail had cut my leg in jujitsu. But after I cleared COVID, all of a sudden, I now know I got GBS in 2021. But at that point, I had no idea what was happening. And my hands started going numb. And I didn't tell anybody that my hands were going numb. And my feet were simultaneously going numb, where I couldn't feel my feet anymore. And so I had gone back to work and my feet are going numb. And I get up every day. I'm working 10, 12-hour days and come home. I don't say anything. Once again, here's this male ego, right? Not saying anything. And so then it starts ascending up my body and my ankles start going numb. And some other things start happening. I lose my urinary stream and now my vision starts getting blurry. And after about a week or two of that, I'm like, geez, in the middle of the night, I was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning because my feet ended up hurting so bad that the only thing that would stop the pain was an ice bath. So I was filling my bathtub up with ice and getting in there and soaking at 3 o'clock in the morning and going back to bed. So I finally break down and I tell my wife, I'm like, listen, I don't know what's going on with me, but I can't feel my hands right now. My feet, I can't feel, can hardly pee, have blurry vision. When I get home from work tonight, maybe we should go to urgent care. And my wife is like, when you get home from, well, you ain't going to work tonight. We're going to urgent care now. You're going to take today off and we're going to go to urgent care. So we go to urgent care. And while I'm in urgent care, they're running my vitals. I don't have a problem with people sticking me with needles or anything like that, but I was getting so weak so quickly that when they were drawing blood from me, I just passed out. I fainted, went out unconscious. They wake me back up. They start running some tests and they go to me, look, man, we don't want to scare you, but we think there's a good chance you might have multiple sclerosis, MS, or another autoimmune disorder called GBS. And I hadn't even heard of GBS. And they said, we don't have the ability to find out here, but what we need to do is send you to the hospital down the street. And we highly recommend you go and get a spinal tap where they draw fluid from your spine and they test the protein in your spinal fluid. So we go to the hospital, they check me into the ER, and bro, I was like, I describe it like a double A battery or that Energizer bunny. Like I was just getting weaker by the second. I could hardly shake the doctor's hand. My reflexes in my legs went away where they tapped to check your reflexes. I couldn't even feel it. The numbness had ascended up to about my knees. So they put me in the ER and they bring me back and they stick a needle in my spine and they draw the fluid. And they said to me, look, it's going to be about an hour to 2 hours before we get the lab test back from here. You can stay in the ER. Okay. It's not a problem. You stay here. We're going to monitor you. Or I live about maybe a mile, half mile from the hospital. They said, if you're more comfortable, you can go home. But if any of these symptoms start getting worse, like if this numbness starts ascending up your body and it gets to your heart and lungs, it will shut down your heart and lungs if you have what you think you have, and you won't be able to breathe anymore. Your heart will shut. So if it starts ascending up your body, you need to get back in here immediately. So my wife and I decided to go home. I'm just not a huge fan of the hospital. I love the people, the doctors, the nurses, but the whole process of being in the hospital, I had a thing with my dad, ended up passing away in the hospital over the course of a month or so, and I stayed with him. And I don't have great memories of hospitals. So we go home and I take a nap because I'm exhausted. And when I wake up, man, I can't feel from exactly what they said might happen is happening. I can't feel from my waist below. So now at my hip line below my body, I have no feeling. I'm having trouble walking. My motor skills are diminishing. And so we go immediately back in to the hospital. They get my results from the test. They put me in a wheelchair. They said, we're going to put you in the ICU. And they said, it's not absolutely definitive, but we are like 90% sure now that you have Guillain-Barré syndrome. And I didn't even know what that is. They put me in the elevator in the wheelchair and they start wheeling me through the ICU. And I see people from all walks of life in the ICU in other rooms. I see a lot of people, bro, that probably are not going to make it out of the ICU that are much worse than I am. And I make an absolute decision at that point. In my mind, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I am never once going to complain about anything. I'm never going to go, woe is me. I'm going to find a way out of here. I am going to stay positive because I have my why is my family. For my family, my kids, I have two beautiful boys, and I don't know what's going to happen here, but I'm going to find something positive. And I look back at that and I go, man, that didn't happen to me. It happened for me. So I go into the ICU and my body ends up, I get to a point where I'm in bed, incapacitated. I basically soil myself. I can't even make it to the bathroom. My body shuts down. And at one point, man, I can even turn my head left or right to see who's coming in the room. And I was left to my mentality. Here's an individual that my whole last 30 years have been defined by my physicality, either my physicality or helping other people's physicality. And now I have to navigate my way through one of the toughest parts of my life using my mentality. And I prayed. I filled my room with positive vibrations. Thankfully, they put me in isolation in the ICU. And the reason they did that is even though I had cleared COVID weeks before, when they stuck that Q-tip to my brain to test, I still had traces of COVID. So they put me in isolation, which ended up being a blessing. And we have so many things that, for me, bring back my memory of my father in the hospital, like the beeping of the monitors. I have beads all over my body, just the sounds of the hospital. So I said, I'm going to start filling my room with positive vibrations. And I started playing, for me, inspirational music. Bob Marley, for me, is amazing. I trained his son Ziggy for 20 years and I never thought it would come backward. Now he's like, I'm playing his music, I'm playing Bob, and I'm like, I'm gonna feel that, I'm gonna drown out everything else. I feel that. The next front, man, caregivers, veterans like yourself, police officers, doctors, nurses, ambulance drivers. I have been guilty in the past of going when an ambulance comes by, man, thinking about me stuck in traffic because of an ambulance, not thinking about who's in that ambulance and how they're in need. We call upon you guys in our dire need of time, the worst times of our lives, and we call upon our rescuers, right? So I've had that realization, and it's a shame what happens in the hospitals. It is an absolute shame because number one, I need to be nourished and try to get as healthy as possible. And I need everybody that's there helping everybody to be on top of their game, to be nourished, to be healthy, to be all the things that they can be. And if you go to the cafeteria in the hospital, it is an atrocity what they feed or leave available for doctors, for patients. You're looking at like French fries that have been there for 3 days, a vegetable that looks like it was cooked back in October and now we're in February. And they don't have any nourishment for the people that we need the most, right? At least give them the option to go, man, you can have healthy food and nourish your body on a cellular level and whatever you want. If you want to eat French fries, it's there. But also, if you want something healthy, it's here for you. So we can help our caregivers also and our patients. So being involved in nutrition, being involved in sports performance, being involved in working on making everybody's life better on a physical level. And like my wife had the idea, she's like, we're not eating this food. I'm going to go home. And she started pureeing organic foods because I couldn't swallow anymore. I was getting pureed food. I had no more ability to swallow because they were worried I would choke on it. So we had music going and positive vibrations. My wife came in with organic foods all day. And we even offered them to our nursing staff because I want them to be nourished. I want them to have this if they want it. And then I occupied my mind with prayer. I occupied my mind, and this may sound crazy, and I don't want to take away from all the amazing things Western medicine did. They gave me medicine. They put me on a thing called IVIG, immunoglobulin. That helped. I have no question about that. But to keep my mind from having negative thoughts come in there, man, I started envisioning my body healing itself. I started asking my body to heal itself. And then I was praying and I demanded my body to heal itself. And this is taking place over a course of days, nonstop. If I can move my finger, I was moving my finger. If I could blink my eyes, I was blinking my eyes. I'm like, I am going to turn my eye blinks into my neck moving, and I'm going to turn my fingers into my hands squeezing, and I'm going to just keep going. I will not stop. And so over the course of 10 days, man, a lot of things happened. I coded out in the hospital where they would put me in an MRI and I went unconscious and the whole floor shut down and they sent all the doctors to me. And my poor wife was there and had to deal with that. But man, if all that didn't happen for me, brother, I would have never had the impetus to write a book. Here's someone that I can't even write a. I'm so bad at spelling that when I type some spell check is like, we have no idea what the hell you're trying to do here. You need to give us more of a clue. But I was listening to an audiobook about jujitsu from a friend of mine, Richard Bressler, who was one of the first people to ever do jujitsu in America. And I said, man, I have these stories that I've had jotted down when I was on tour with different artists, and I have a story to tell. And how can I make this into something positive? And I didn't know how I was going to do it. It seemed so far fetched. And I didn't know how I was going to get back to walking. And it didn't worry about how. I just said, man, I'm going to do this. And they wheeled me out of the ICU in 10 days in a wheelchair and started regaining some function. And I started rehab and I did it 7 days a week. I went to a physical therapist 5 days a week. And then I did 2 days a week on my own. And I went from squeezing a little ball to trying to walk to the couch or my bed and falling down and going, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take another step. 7 days a week. And over the course of 3 months, man, I went from a wheelchair to a walker to a cane to getting full function back in my body and not accepting anything less. And sitting down in that 3 months and going, man, I'm the kind of person that needs to have mental stimulation. I'm the kind of person that needs to work towards something. And so from listening to that audiobook, so crazy, I reached out to the person that did the audiobook. We talked and he gave me some pointers and he connected me with the guy that was his editor, Scott Burr, another jujitsu guy, who got into being an editor and an author and a co-author. And he said yes. Well, he didn't say yes. He said, listen, I just got done writing this book and I'm so exhausted. I promised myself, I promised my girlfriend, I'm not going to do this again anytime soon. He goes, but what you're telling me is at least a little intriguing. Could you send me a little bit of what you have written? And he took a leap of faith on me. And I emailed him some stuff that I started jotting down on my computer just to keep my sanity alive while I couldn't do things. And he got back to me and he goes, man, can you send me a little bit more? So I sent him a little bit more and he got the email and he called me that day and he goes, look at man, I told you I made a promise I didn't want to do this. My girlfriend's going to kill me, but your story needs to be told. And I would like to go on this journey with you. And I had another person in my life say yes, because I had all this stuff and I didn't know how to facilitate it and put it in book form. And so we teamed up and he started off as my editor and months down the road, I made him my co-author because he had crafted so much and helped. And we put out a book, dude. I mean, the first half of my life, I didn't even read books. I mean, I read books now to make up for my first 20 years of not reading anything. My scholastic ability was finding out how to cheat on a test so I can pass. That's it, man. So we put together a book titled Confessions of a Hollywood Trainer. It becomes an instant #1 Amazon bestseller. We talked about briefly, I have people contact me from prison. I have had people contact me that their grandmas had GBS. I've had people contact me that they have had GBS and they read my book and they're like, can you give me some tips of what you did? I'm trying to find my way through this. And it has had an insane ripple effect that I would have never thought possible had GBS not happened for me. If I'd not gone through that. And if I had gone through GBS or something similar in my mentality as a 20-year-old, I wouldn't have been able to handle it. But all these things that we see as failures, all these things that we label as tough times, all these things that we label as, man, this is a tough part of my life, were given to me to allow me to be at this moment with you right now where I could have made it through and I had the resilience to make it through this most challenging part of my life where I was paralyzed and to be able to go, man, I went from being paralyzed, went from prison to being paralyzed to making a book about it and hopefully positively influencing people. So I want people to know that if you're in a tough time, if you have anger issues, if you have depression, if you're mad, all these things, however we label it, you're human. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself as you would other people. Patient with yourself. Work towards what you want, man. Find a systematic way to work towards what you want. Things I've done in my life, I've looked at other people that have done that and go, man, what clues can I gather from what they've done? Be brave. I picked up the phone twice a month and I hate asking for help. Once again, that's something with me that's probably shouldn't be my ego. And I picked up the phone twice in my life. Once they let me change my geography, and then the second time with my book, and they let me into this world that they offered their knowledge. And through that, I was able to form partnerships that really have been positive step in my life and a positive step in other people's lives. And so that's what happened in 2021, man. And now I'm here trying to inspire as many people as I can to understand that they can do anything, to try to get the word to people that if you're in a deep, dark place, man, there is light out there. And if you're willing to work and you're willing to put in the time, you can get to the light and there's people waiting for you, man. I'm extending a hand to help and I'll help any way I can. I take people's emails, phone calls, texts, and it may take a minute for me to get back to you, but I will get back to you.
Yeah, just kind of touching on some things you were talking about there is, yeah, that positive self-talk, that internal dialogue, having that resilience instead of saying this happened to me, this happened for me. Just those small changes like that. And I'm big on communication. I'm big on how do we communicate to ourselves? What are the things that we're telling ourselves? Because essentially that creates our reality. It's all about our thoughts.
Yes,
Our
sir.
thoughts become actions. And if you have that mentality of, okay, well, today I can wiggle my thumb. Well, guess what? I'm gonna wiggle it so it falls off, and then I'm gonna try to do something else. And I've heard similar stories to people that were in situations like that, where they were just incapacitated, paralyzed. They would do anything. If the only thing they could do is breathe, and they would breathe heavy and deep until the next thing you know, they're talking. But it's through that power of thought. We don't really acknowledge how powerful our brains are because it runs everything. Without the brain, the body does not work. And especially you being a trainer, your job is to push people beyond that point where they say, "Hey, I can't
Right.
do this." Hey, give me one more rep. If you're bench pressing 250, hey, let's do 275. Oh, I can't do that. Well, let's give it a try. You might need a little help, but we got to expose you to that. You have that mentality. And it's funny how you talked about earlier, talk about identity. One of my other podcasts talked to a Navy SEAL, and he said that's something that he has to work on. And he has to identify he has a event coming up where he has to swim. And you think Navy SEAL, swimming is no problem. He's like, I hate swimming. So I have to identify as a swimmer. He said, I have to have that
Right.
mentality. Okay, today I'm a swimmer. So I got to go out here and swim. Or today I'm a runner. I have to go out here and run. But it's about establishing that identity, that self talk. Say, hey, this is what I am, and go for it. Yeah, I love your story. I'm definitely excited to picking up your book because I always wondered about about you Hollywood trainers living the easy life, right? Just out there caviar and champagne and telling the movie stars what to do.
That could be the perception. Yeah. You bring up some great points, man, about the mind and the reps and it's small steps, small steps. If you look at my life, man, it is not a trajectory like this. It is ups and downs and little small wins. And day after day, just putting in time. I'm still learning. I'm still learning so much, man. The one thing I know is that I don't know everything. So I'm always still trying to learn. I'm learning from you right now, man. And so be open to learning from people. Once again, know that everything is possible. And you gotta do a little bit of something every day, man. I try to make myself uncomfortable every day. So when the world throws uncomfortability at me, it's like, okay, I'm used to this. I'm getting comfortable in uncomfortability. Talk about swimming in that Navy SEAL training. I stink at swimming, man. I swim like a rock, but it's something that I try to do all the time because I know I'm not good at it. Instead of sitting in my little comfortable bubble, jujitsu, same thing, getting in uncomfortable positions. So prepare yourself. There is no, man, there is no magic wand, right? I can't just wave this wand and say, you're going to have this or that or whatever, achieve this. There is no magic wand. What there is, I was living, I don't want to point fingers at other people, but in my life, I've lived at different capacities that I have. Like I used to live at 25% of my capacity or 50% of my capacity. I try to get this life is short. We go through one time, man. I'm going to give everything I have for whatever I'm involved in right now. If you're involved with me, you're going to get 100% of me because I don't want to leave anything behind. So live everything you can to your fullest, man. We need to experience who you are. You need to shower us with all that you are. And don't look back. I want to be able to look back and go, man, I did everything I could. It may have come up short, and that's okay. You may define that as a failure. I define that as feedback, man. I'm just found out, okay, I need to change some things or learn new things. But give everything you can. Love the people that you want to love, that you can love. Don't be afraid to tell them you love them. And look back and go, man, I'm proud of all this because I gave everything I could have. I helped as many people as I could. And I'll live my life to its fullest. I didn't leave any stone unturned. That's my message, man. I appreciate you plugging my book and telling people about it. There's a lot of crazy stories in there that we couldn't capture and hear and stuff that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe he was. You will realize how stupid of stuff I did when you read my book and go like, man, if you think that you don't have, if like there's no chance for you, wait till you see how stupid of stuff I've done. You think what I've covered here is stupid, I've done so no matter where you're at in your life, it's the perfect place and you can really create anything. You got to believe it. You got to, number one, and then you got to go and work for it.
Yeah, it's a definitely it's a nail on the head right there. Life's short. You gotta give it to your 100%, and you got to put in that work. That nasty four-letter word, work. That so many people are scared of these days.
Yeah. And you know
Uh,
what? Can I leave out one thing, James?
no, go ahead.
I have, as I stated in the beginning, an absolute soft spot in my heart for veterans, for active duty military, for our caregivers, our police, our firemen, our teachers, our nurses. I can't do it all the time, but I do donate a certain amount of my time, a certain amount of my efforts to helping those people. And so if you listen to this and you know someone, you are someone, and there's something I can do, I'm happy to donate some of my time to do that. Whatever that may be, I don't even know how I could help you, whether that's helping with nutrition, fitness, mindset, whatever. I would like to donate some of my time to help the people that help us when we're in need. So I want to put that out there. You can reach me at all the places. It's John.Petrelli on Instagram. I'm horrible at the social media stuff. Facebook, it's my name. My book is Confessions of a Hollywood Trainer. So is one of my websites, John Petrelli. Reach out to me. If you know someone that's in need, I want to donate some of my time to help those people.
All right, that was my interview with John Peterelli. I hope you enjoyed that. I think he has a very inspirational story. If you have a chance, check out his book, Confessions of a Hollywood Trainer, available on Amazon. I've read a little bit of it. It's pretty interesting. I would highly recommend it. There's a reason why it's a top 10 Amazon bestseller. I'll be sure to put a link to that in the description. So if you have any topics that you want covered, or you know somebody that would be a good fit for the podcast, please let me know. If you need any of our behavioral health education classes, anger management, stress management, alcohol and drug education, please check us out on our website, freedomanger.com. And that pretty much wraps it up. And as always, Stay safe.